Okay, hey guys, like I said, my name is Trevor, and this morning I want to talk to you about mainly parts identification for a single hung window, single hung vinyl window in this case. Not really, well, who knows what we'll get into, but mainly it's going to be parts identification. So this is a single hung vinyl window. The reason that we call it a single hung is that the only part that moves is the bottom sash, because there's technically no top sash to this window. There is a top glass, right? Mm-hmm. So both parts are replaceable, the top glass and the bottom sash. And in a double hung window, which is a thing, right? The top glass is built into a sash just like this sash, and they're both operable. So the majority of what Husky sells is single hung windows, all right? Okay, so parts identification for a window, obviously. Top glass, bottom sash, operable sash. This is called a head jamb. These are side jambs, and this is the sill. There's different kinds of sill, but the two main, or two most common types of sill that I wanted to discuss in this training are what's called a sill tray, which is what this window has, or some people call it a false sill. So really what that means is if a window has a false sill or a sill tray, the bottom sash closes onto this sill, but to make sure that all water drains out of this unit, there are weep holes. See that hole there and this hole here? So there's actually a channel that goes under the sill tray that allows water to get out of this window, that gets in it through, regular rain, storms, things like that. So head jamb, side jambs, sill, bottom sash. So the bottom sash, I'm gonna flip this around, is removable. And if I had a Vanna, that would be helpful. If you can just put a hand on that side, that would be great.
Oh yeah.
All right, cool. So the bottom sash, it's actually got a lot of parts. Mm-hmm. These are called sash pins. They're removable, replaceable. These parts here are called tilt latches. I've actually got one here that's loose. I'll pass it around so you can take a look at it. It's got a little spring in it, which allows the window to be tilted out of the side jamb track. And then a sash lock. I've got a little free-handed sample of that you can take a look at. I'll pass around. So let's talk about the sash lock for a second. So sash lock, pretty simple. Everybody's seen one. This is the sash lock keeper, guys. You gotta have both parts to make that sash lock operate properly. And if you've got one that isn't locking easily, the usual culprit is that the sash lock keeper is not properly aligned with the sash lock itself. Okay, other parts of, thank you, Anna. Miziani. Bulb seal. This is something that we replace a lot in service, or that we pay attention to when we're servicing a window, making sure that the bulb seal isn't missing or damaged, so that we get a good seal between the bottom sash and the sill track itself. So I'm gonna leave that out and then talk about some parts that are inside this window. Inside this track here, you're either gonna find a constant force sash balance. This is the gizmo that holds the window sash in place when you raise the window, right? What I'm doing right now is really dangerous, because if it snaps or gets away from me, it'll hurt. That's one type called constant force. It's just a coil inside this plastic.
What is that called again?
A constant force sash balance, or a coil balance.
Oh, okay, I've heard that.
This is a different type of balance, does the same thing. Can actually get that one pulled out. Yeah, I can. There we go. It's got a spring on the back side. And here's really what I wanted to explain to you about these. These have a cam inside them so that the sash pins on the sash itself fit into on either side. You notice that this sash balance is staying in place. It's not like flinging up to the top of the, but it's under tension, right? Well, the reason that that's working is, does everybody know what a cam is? Looks like this. So I'm gonna do my very best to draw a circle. Ooh, let me try again. That's a really bad circle. And this is a cam or an egg. All right, so when this sash is in the vertical position, that cam inside there, which is this piece right here, that cam is oriented in its skinny position as opposed to the fat egg position, right? When you tilt the sash out 90 degrees, it turns that cam this way, so it's wider, and it forces a brake shoe on the front and back side of the side jam to hold that sash balance in its current position, so that you can service the window. This is kind of unique to in my windows, but this little piece of foam is called foam track block. And it's in there for two reasons. It's in there so that if this gizmo gets unlocked when it's not supposed to be, in other words, when the sash is not in there, it doesn't get loose and slam and hit this plastic piece that it's mounted to and break it, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's one purpose. The other purpose is we've got weep holes on the outside of this window, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got weep holes here and they're open, so that's air. So air can get in here and come up under this false sill and then come up the sides of the jam, right? And so what a secondary purpose of that foam blocking is to stop air infiltration that comes through the weep system. All right, so let me put this back in and we'll keep talking more about window features.
Trevor, I have a question.
Sure, go for it.
You said the top of one, it doesn't move, it's called a glass, and the bottom one is a sash. Is the top always a glass and the bottom always a sash, or if it moves, is that a sash? And if it doesn't, it's a glass?
So that's a great question. As I was saying earlier, so there's two types of vertically operable windows, single hungs and double hungs. In a single hung, only the bottom sash moves. In a double hung unit, the top glass isn't fixed, it's also in its own sash, right? Let's talk about top glass for a minute. So I'm sure if we were talking about a double hung, I've already demonstrated, right, how to take the sash out of the unit, you tilt it out, pull one side up, it comes free, right? Mm-hmm. The top glass. So the top glass, depending on the manufacturer, they're always stopped in. So what do I mean by stop? Stop is this glazing bead. It's actually 4 pieces. In this case, you take these 2 side pieces off in the top and bottom. And the top glass is either tape glazed in or what the industry calls wet glazed. What wet glaze means is a product like silicone or GSL, which is kind of it's a self-healing adhesive. Even after it cures up, if you cut it apart, if you touch it back to itself, it'll like remeld into one piece, is used to attach the top glass to the actual frame of the window, right? So it's built into the frame. So we get a cracked top glass, right? How do we replace it? We take these 4 pieces of glazing bead out, and in some cases come to the exterior of the window and actually cut the silicone or whatever adhesive is holding that glass into this into the top part of the frame out, and this glass simply falls out with it after we've cut it loose from the frame. And then installation is reverse or removal. Guys, these are called SDLs. So, have you ever noticed when you drive by houses that were built up to about the 1940s, all their windows have a lot of character, really pretty, but nobody wants to own one because they're hard to maintain? Okay. That's because they have what's called true divided lights, right? And what true divided lights are is this window treatment on this single pane of glass. This whole glass is one pane. It's not four separate panes, but it's made to look like one. But in the old days, and this dates back to kind of colonialism, glass was very expensive. It wasn't made in the US, it was made in Europe. So the smaller you could get the pieces, the cheaper it was to transport. So ingenious colonists were like, well, we'll just put a little piece of wood, a stile, between each of these small pieces of glass, and we can have windows as big as we want them. And that's how that window style was born. But today we don't do that anymore, because everywhere that you have a piece of wood that comes from the outside of the frame to the inside of the frame, you have a thermal break, is what it's called, right? So it's not energy efficient. So now we take one piece of glass that's insulated glass, and we apply this PVC bar to it topically. It's got a double-sided tape on the back of it to make it look like a house that was built prior to 1940, which leads me to what I should have talked about before I talked about SDLs. Sorry, simulated divided light, or SDL, is insulated glass. So insulated glass, I think, that's not a mystery to anybody, right? A piece of glass on the outside, a piece of glass on the inside, a spacer. What does it do? It insulates the interior of the space from the temperature of the exterior of the house. That's an innovation that really came to be pretty standard by the 1980s for sure. And then there's an innovation past insulated glass that helps keep modern homes comfortable, and that is Low-E glass. So what Low-E glass is if you think about the insulated glass in this bottom sash, there is surface one, that's this surface, that's the outside surface. Then the inside of this pane is called surface 2. Then the inside of the inside pane is called surface 3. And this surface that I can touch is called surface 4 on the inside of the glass. So, surface 2, the inside of the outside pane, has a metallic coating that is electroplated onto the glass. And what it does is it marginally reduces the amount of visible light that comes through the glass, but it blocks, depending on the type, 70 to 97% of the sun's radiant heat, right? So what it's not blocking thermal transfer. If it's 100 degrees outside and completely dark, so the sun's not out, it's 100 degrees outside and it's 70 degrees inside, Low-E coating can't stop the thermal transfer of 100 degrees outside migrating through the glass to the interior. But what it can do, and does very well, is it will stop the sun's radiation. It just, with that metallic coating, just bounces it right back out in the atmosphere. So it makes the house more comfortable probably than insulated glass does, right? Another side benefit of Low-E coatings is that they keep your floors from getting bleached. If you've got hardwood floors, or your furniture from getting bleached, keeps the backside of drapes from getting sun damaged. You know, if you've got a non-Low-E coated window, after 10 years, the backside, the lining of drapes will just fall apart on a sun-facing side.
Right.
So, other energy efficiency related things that happen inside an IG or insulated glass. So we have this low-E or low emissivity, I should have said that when I said low-E, low emissivity coating that stops the sun. How can we actually stop the thermal transfer of temperature from outside to inside, right? This actually works better in cold climates than it does in warm climates. So let's say North Dakota, you know, a normal winter day is -22 outside, and you want it to be somewhere close to 70 degrees inside. So you have to have mass to transfer heat. So if you put a very low mass gas in between the outside pane and the inside pane, like argon or krypton, then the temperature can't move through that low molecular weight gas very easily. So another way that energy efficiency is increased in modern windows is through filling the insulated glass space with argon or krypton. So hey, since we've got service people in here, let's talk about problems with low emissivity coatings or low E coatings. If you get a customer that calls and they say, hey, it looks like there's gas, on the water on my windows because it's pinkish or it has a greenish cast. Usually it'll be both simultaneously. What's happened is the manufacturer at the factory, when they did a layup, which is where they take the outside and the inside piece of glass and marry them together with the spacer in between, they got the pieces of glass reversed, and what the low E coating is on the inside of the outside pane, right? So it's on surface 2, and what they did is they flipped 1 and 2 at the factory, which put the low E coating, which is metallic, and when it reacts with oxygen, it oxidizes and it turns pink and green at the same time. On the outside, that's a warrantable thing, right? That's not something that that happens often, but it does happen, and it is something that the manufacturer warrants just full replacement for. It's not something that costs the customer or us anything, at least to get the parts for. Okay, let's talk about other low issues that can happen with low E coatings. So let's say that this window is installed in a brick house. Most brick homes, once they have brick laid, get what's called an acid wash or a detergent wash. What it's designed to do is break up mortar that has gotten smeared on the surface of the bricks, just clean the brick facade up, make it look good. Used to be very common to use a highly acidic or a non-buffered acidic, which I know it's Greek, but acid wash. But that metallic coating on surface 2 of windows does not like that acidic wash. And what will happen is you'll get these very bright streaks of green or pink that come from the top of the glass. If you see that, or if you see like bellies of metallic, right? That's actually not a manufacturer's defect. That is the builder not having his subcontractor use the right stuff to wash that glass, to wash the brick, right? And it got overspray onto the window and damaged that low E coating. So warrantable low E failures when the whole glass face is pink or green, or when you see streaks or bellies of pink, that is not a warrantable thing, right? That's misuse. Just to highlight the difference there. Let's talk for just a minute about spontaneous glass breakage. So when the factory is laying up this outside piece of glass and the inside piece of glass, they do it in a high heat scenario, right? So the butyl coating that they're using to put this outside and inside piece together is hot, and it can create different stresses on this pane than it would create on this pane. You get it out to the job site, in 90-degree heat and everything's fine, but when it gets cold, that differential tension in the insulated glass will cause what's called a spontaneous stress crack. The way that you can usually identify them is there is no impact mark on the glass, and they usually appear not in the corners. They usually appear somewhere in the margin of the 4 sides, not in the margin. What is this? This is the opposite of margin. They appear in the middle of one of the 4 sides, and they kind of sneak their way in an arc to the center of the glass and stop. That's a stress crack. Don't fight the customer on it. They happen, right? And honestly, they don't happen a ton, but the customer is going to have some righteous indignation, right? Mm-hmm. If you say, you broke it, and they go, no, we didn't, right? Well, they probably didn't. Stress cracks happen. They're covered in 100% in the first year by the manufacturer. Because the manufacturer knows they happen, they're not gonna argue with you about it, right? Mm-hmm. The reason that they're warranted for a year is it's going to take a year to get through the season cycles and therefore all the temperature cycles that house is normally going to experience. You had a question?
I did. Back to the low E thing real quick. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between low E and HP low E? Great
question. So it varies by manufacturer, okay? So I mentioned that there are different types of low E coating. Mm-hmm. The most common, I'm not going to, sorry, let me address your question a little bit differently. Every manufacturer has started kind of private labeling their names for the different types of low E coating or different low E coating in combination with argon gas in between the paints. But just to keep it very simple, a standard low E coating is something called low E 272. It's 2 coats of low E that allow 72% of visible light through the glass, okay? And then the other common coating that we use here, at least in the southern or Mideast and southern regions, is low E 366. I bet you can guess that it's 3 coats of low E, which allows 66% of visible light to be transmitted through the glass. Mm-hmm. So HP low E is 3 coats of low E, which allows 66% of visible light transmission. In the case of HP, I don't think it includes argon, but I'm not sure. I can check on that for you. Some manufacturers call low E 272 sun stable. Some manufacturers don't try to make it confusing and they just call it what it is, low E 272. Does that help explain the difference between the two? A way that you can pretty easily identify the difference between regular low E and HP low E, if we're talking about MI specifically, is that regular low E window made by MI, the glass will have kind of a green cast. And can you guys see that, the green coloration when I held it up to the white window or white board background? Mm-hmm. Whereas HP low E will have a blue cast. Is an easy way to identify the difference. But most manufacturers don't do a color change. It's just gradations of green. So low E 272, which is what this is, by the way, will have kind of a light green cast, and low E 366 is very, very green, almost has a mirror finish to it. So yeah, let me cover this quickly. Back to window parts. It's gonna stay. All right, so every window sash is going to have a lift bar or lift rail, and this particular manufacturer has a lift rail that is actually built into the glazing bead at the bottom of the window, so it's serving 2 functions. Some manufacturers will do it this way, where they mold it into the glazing bead. Other manufacturers will mold it into the frame of the window sash itself. But in any case, they'll always have one, so you have something to grab onto to raise and lower the window. Does anybody have any questions so far? I've thrown a lot of information at you really quick. No? No questions? Thank you for your question. What you got?
We touched on SDL.
Yeah.
There's GBD also.
Oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Austin. Okay, so this SDL actually has a GBG inside of it. A GBG, or grids between glass, is a way to simulate that classic look of TDL, or true divided light windows, that have a wood stiles that separate each pane of glass. So the most common scenario that you're going to run into if you see grids is not SDL. This is a nice upgrade. they're going to be GBG. So the bars are just going to be between the glass in the IG or insulated glass space. And they're aluminum, they come in various configurations and various styles, but the most common one is 3/4 or 7/8, what they call flat bar. But you can also get a bar that's 1 inch wide and is contoured, just shows up a little better from the street. All the grids, whether they're SDLs, GBGs, or TDLs, in modern homes are attempts to make the house more appealing from the street, right? It's all about curb appeal. It doesn't serve any practical function, except make them harder to wash and more expensive to buy. They're popular because they look good, right? So anyway, does that answer your question about GBGs? Okay, good. Any other questions?
How do you buy? So what parts of this window can you buy separately? The ones you passed around? Because I don't know, I'm not in the service department, but.
So basically the only part of this. Oh, I didn't cover this. This is called the meeting rail, and it is removable in a single hung window because this glass is stationary. In order to get in a new construction house, the only way to get the drywall into the second floor, besides carrying it up the stairs, is to take the bottom sash out, then take this top glass out, and then take the 4 screws. There's 2 here and 2 here that hold the meeting rail in, and take the meeting rail out. Then you've got in most cases it's a 5/0 window. You've got a 5-foot tall opening to pass 4-foot tall drywall boards through. If you've got a top glass that is tape glazed, which really means that the seal is created in the top glass by pressure, not by a physical connection like silicone or GSL. In either case, you have the ability to take this out and pass 4-foot drywall boards through, right? No drywall company wants to carry 12-foot sheets of drywall up the stairs, right? They're packaged 2 at a time. It's very heavy. Usually the intersection at the top of the stairs is going to be tight. They're always going to want to pass it through a window in the second floor. Great question. Hey, I think that's pretty good for identifying the basic parts of a window, right? And there's an endless number of things that we could get into detail-wise, but that covers the high points.